戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is March 4th, 2026. We are live to tape on episode 920. And today, TECHNATE Navy. And signing on from Off the Grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy, Basil. And you're not
I'm
crazy.
not crazy. And my name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Defeat. What? What am I saying? I'm not. Director of the Age of Deceit films, author of Archetypalism, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It's Wednesday.
Wednesday, my dudes.
Wednesday.
I'm only noticing just in this exact moment, Gonz, looking at the screen, that the art for today says TECHNATE Navy and Nephilim.
Oh, I misspelled it.
Oh,
Oh
no.
my goodness, that
I
is.
misspelled it, but
Hey,
I
you know what?
I put it in the email.
This is how you know that there are still some things being manually done on this podcast. There are AI has not seeped into every crevasse of this show. So there you go,
No.
folks.
Not yet.
Not
It's Wednesday. We made it.
Mhm.
We can tell by the rocky start to the show that it's been a fun week, and we're all ready for the weekend that starts, oh gosh, in like 3 days. It's
we're only halfway. You know, we have daylight savings coming up this weekend. It's almost.
Does daylight savings still exist? There was
It does.
a slow undercurrent last year, and they were talking about having a vote. I thought they did have the vote. In my mind, I thought they voted out daylight savings time, which I have very unpopular opinions across the board, which many people who listen to this show will be aware of. One of my most unpopular opinions is that we shouldn't have gotten rid of the penny. The penny is the foundation of, everything that we understand as an economy. And I think it's a broad scale sort of alien / Nephilim deception to get rid of the penny. My other unpopular opinion is daylight savings time must stay. Okay, it's tradition. See, people say, oh, daylight savings, that was back when farmers needed extra time, and it's this old thing that we don't really need anymore. Look, folks, listen to me. Traditions are solutions to problems that we no longer have. Why? Because the tradition solved the problem. You get rid of the solution and the problem comes back, okay? Just purely for traditional purposes. We should be keeping daylight savings time because what do we know? We get this propaganda that, oh, daylight savings time is just for farmers in Arizona or something, and they're messing everybody up, and it's so sad every year. We got to go back and forth. That's just what we're told. Who knows what chaos is being held at bay by, it could be, I mean, we got to look deeper. Maybe the Apocrypha or the Book of Enoch.
I don't think we need to go
some fallen angel or so, the watchers come down, they teach technology and magic and makeup and antimony. Perhaps on that list was the watchers taught daylight savings time because otherwise, some sort of dark lord will take over the earth or something. We are not taking this seriously enough.
It's preventing the alignment where the abyss opens up. We don't need to even go outside the Bible for that. Daniel 7, verse 25, he shall speak words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Do you feel worn out yet? And shall think to change the times and the law.
Shall think to change the times and the law. It's right that what scripture is this?
This is Daniel 7, verse 25.
Daniel 7, verse 25 says we need to keep daylight savings time, okay? Is this talking about the Antichrist or the lawless one or something? The Antichrist wants to get rid of daylight savings time, especially via the law. Hello, Congress. All right. Well, if they haven't voted it out, that's good. I was a little bit worried about that. I'll do a quick
look. Talking about it, but there are or have been some signs of the seasons in the heavens. I did wake up at 3:33 a.m. actually a little bit before then. My 5-year-old son really wanted to see the red moon, and so I set the alarm there on Monday night and whispered into my little 5-year-old's ear at 3:30ish. I said, "Hey, bud, do you want to go see the red moon or blood red moon?" Jumped out of the bed, no hesitation, ready to go. We went out there. It was a little cloudy at first, a little chilly, but we stood there for a couple minutes, and the clouds, like a miracle, Basil, the clouds just wisped away, and we were able to get a good, solid look at the peak of the blood red moon there. So, we were praying against the dark forces and any kind of, whatever they were trying to do there with the occult imagery and whatnot. So, yeah, there you go. There you go.
As someone who was also a young child when they first discovered the blood red moon, does what do they call it? They call it a formative, core memory. That's what the kids call it these days. Core memory. Just as a heads up, let's see here. Recent proposals include the Daylight Act of 2026, introduced in February of 2026, which would shift clocks forward by 30 minutes permanently and repeal seasonal changes.
Wait, hold on. Shift clocks forward 30 minutes?
So that's the solution, is everybody's time goes forward 30 minutes, and then they'd stop ending the shift. So they're splitting the difference is what they're doing. You don't
30 minutes
an hour back, move an hour forward. You just go to the 30 minutes and you stay there.
Yeah, I have seen some people map out how a 13-month calendar would be much more symmetrical when it comes to the number of days or how we divide up the months.
Yeah.
It'd be much easier to keep up with the 4-week cycle of the month instead of these these Gregorians. They're the ones that change the times and the seasons.
It all up.
Yeah. So
all right, there you go. Yes, to February 2026, they did present the Daylight Act of 2026, and I don't think they voted on it yet. But this is signs and wonders. They're trying to do the thing that is holding back the chaos for, I don't know exactly how long, but a long time.
Well, one thing did change after the blood red moon, and that is the Face Like the Sun X account somehow started getting some love, Basil. I don't know what happened, but I posted something. Obviously, I was up early that day. I couldn't go back to sleep. Posted a thing, found a little clip of this gentleman named Professor Jang. He's predicting that Iran is going to win this war in the Middle East and the United States is going to fall apart. And it's because the West is
feels like maybe you should read your post and then we'll play the video,
Okay.
because
All right.
this is obviously something that people were very interested in hearing. So
Mhm.
let's present it as if it's part of the show, and then you
Okay.
can talk about it from there.
Okay. So I posted this on 7:30, 3/3, March 3rd. Professor Jiang is predicting that the West is going to lose to Iran in this war. He states how the Epstein files show the West is being run by what he called the Illuminati. They include the Jesuits who control the Vatican, the Frankists who control Zionist Israel, and the Freemasons who control the national security apparatus. He says the Illuminati believe the Israel-Iran conflict is eschatological and that the war will bring, quote, heaven on earth for them. He's not wrong, and it's why I've been saying we live in an age of deceit. The West is being run by elite pedophile / cannibals, and when Americans are told we are fighting for freedom and that this is a God-ordained holy war, rest assured it's the Antichrist spirit behind it. Professor Jiang also said Trump will push for a third term because of the ongoing war. This checks out because Trump told evangelicals they won't ever have to vote again during his 2024 campaign. Do you remember that? We were kind of like, that's kind of weird. Is he just talking about because this would be the end of his sort of run, or is he
Trust me, they won't let us
referencing?
forget that moment.
Yeah,
They're not going to let us forget it.
Yeah, I think this is the end of America. I know I'm so optimistic. I think this is the end of America, but God's eternal kingdom will never be shaken. Stay watchful. And then I have this clip here of Professor Jiang. It's about a minute and a half. Should I play the whole thing?
Do you know who this guy is? Who is this guy?
He's a guy. He predicted I believe he went to Yale. It's funny because the comments said that he is a CCP agent, like an agent of the Chinese Communist Party. The next post after that was, you're quoting and agreeing with a Russian propagandist. So, I don't know what exactly he is, but he did predict the Trump presidency as well as the Iran-Israel conflict flaring up during the Trump presidency. The only other thing that hasn't happened is the West losing this war, I suppose.
Let's see what he has to say. Let's see what he has to say.
If this war goes,
it's muted. Hold on one second. I was not anticipating to play this clip, so here we go. Let's see.
if this war goes,
Was that?
It's playing. You're good.
Okay.
if this war goes sideways, and Trump is forced to use ground troops, he will probably get approval from Congress, and this will give him emergency war powers, which will allow him to influence the midterms. So Trump is thinking about a third term. And I think at the ballot box, he probably won't get it. But if there's a war going on and you can delay elections and you have emergency war powers and people rally around the flag, then he probably will get a third term. And the last factor that is very important is the eschatological factor, where if you look at the Epstein files, it's clear that we are run by secret societies. It's clear that the world is run by these individuals who have a lot of power. We don't know who they are, but they control the military. They control the national security apparatus. And these people, there are different names for these people. You can call them the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are composed of three major groups. Okay, you have the Jesuits, who control the Vatican. You have the Sephardim Frankists, which control the modern state of Israel today. And you have the Freemasons, which control the national security apparatus of the United States. And they believe that Israel, this war in the Middle East, is key to the end times in creating heaven on earth. So it's almost like a script that they're following, even though it doesn't make any geopolitical sense. Okay, so I would say that these three are the best reasons why this is happening.
There you go. He's dropping the title Illuminati, which
I thought that was actually the most interesting part, right? Because it's kind of over the past few years. Now, okay, I don't want to get too deep, but over the past few years, using the term Illuminati has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit. You go back before 2020, back when being a fringe weirdo meant you were actually a fringe weirdo and not, just like a, I don't know, fortune teller or something. Back when we used to actually wear tinfoil hats, you did talk about the Illuminati, and yes, there is the historical Illuminati, but mostly people would use the phrase Illuminati to describe the hidden groups, right?
Mhm.
Whether or not the Illuminati in its historical form still existed, you would use it to just kind of mean
Right.
they,
Right. Yeah, 'cause people would
Uh,
say, retort and say, "Oh, the Bavarian Illuminati with Adam Weishaupt was shut down after they tried to infiltrate these other nations, and then so therefore the group doesn't exist." But yeah, the
but you'd still
conspiracy theorists
use it,
used it
right?
as a generic title for the elite, shadowy people that run the world. So yeah,
Yeah, right. And the claim is the Bavarian Illuminati snuck into the Freemasons and they
right,
survived.
right,
It's like
right.
another, whether or not that's true, I have no reason to actually know either way, except for there are people who have done the research. But you can say Illuminati as kind of this colloquial term, but we really have not heard it that much after 2020.
Mhm.
Everybody starts waking up, everybody starts, focusing on, I mean, really a lot of the conspiracies that touch our daily lives that we come into contact with. I mean, COVID being a really great example of like, an inaction contemporary conspiracy theory getting pulled off. And you kind of didn't need to use the word Illuminati. And with people like, for instance, Candace Owens bringing the Frankists into the
Right.
conversation and stuff like this. It's, they very rarely has the community as a whole who's been waking up even had a reason to use Illuminati as a kind of a catch-all term or something because the specific groups are so well known now. So I don't know. I thought that was an interesting part of it. What I also think it's interesting because I did see this guy, a lot of people talking about this guy.
Yeah,
Get
this guy's
your
going
post,
viral.
God bless your post. I mean, maybe was the most viewed post about it.
I don't know if it
Go
was
on.
the most, but yeah, I did get. It's currently sitting at 634,000 views, so
Yeah,
it got some love in the algos.
either way, the point being that, this conversation
Yeah.
about the ruling elite in whatever form, or maybe all the forms that they exist, do know the Bible. They know what happens in the end, and they're using it as a script to get
Mhm.
us there. And this is something, of course, we've talked about for many, many years as a possibility. But it's interesting how that is kind of taking a more popular, it's a more popular stance to have,
Yeah.
which for Christians specifically, I mean, it's one thing to be a secular person or a secular institution being like, oh, these crazy people think it's the end of the world. But then, as a Christian, it's we are confronted with a much more complicated, I guess, understanding or a much more complicated view of this because we also believe what the Bible says. And
Right.
it's not just some crazy thing. Anyways, we'll get more. We're actually going to revisit this topic a little bit later in the show.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, well, congratulations on catching the algorithm wave there, Gonz.
Yeah, it looks like it's getting some love, and we'll see if it continues. I mean,
Does
there
this
were
mean
times when I would. Huh?
does this mean you're rich now? Are you sponsored
No,
by
no.
I don't know who does all this Squarespace? Does Squarespace sponsor?
Squarespace or Elon or somebody. No, no, no. This particular the Face Like the Sun X account is not monetized. So yeah, there's no money involved with this particular post. But hey, maybe I can get there. You got to get 5 million impressions within a 3-month window to get monetized. So
Okay.
I'm about halfway there. We'll see. We'll see if
Keep
I
going.
can siphon off some money from Elon.
You just need 9 more insanely popular posts, and then
Yeah.
you
Well, look, there's a couple more that went decent. I mean, I don't know what's happening with the algos. I think they're just giving love to
that's
accounts that
okay.
have been around for over 10 years or something. I
We'll
don't know.
we'll set
But
we'll set some time aside to record Gonz's, X algo analysis class. Maybe you make it like a class you can sell or something. All right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, without further ado, this is so funny. Let's start out. We rarely
Uh-huh.
do this. Let's officially start the show with a Nephilim update.
I feel like starting the show with the Nephilim update is something we have done more often recently. And I'm just waiting for the Nephilim update jingle to load because I'm getting the spinning wheel of death over here.
Yay.
If you would just load there. Hey, there you go.
Nephilim update. Nephilim update. Nephilim update.
Now, this is killing me because I was going to bring this to Monday's show and I just didn't, and I will talk about why that is killing me very soon. But this came out on National Geographic, the actual nationalgeographic.com. And we're going to read quite a bit of this. It's not too heavy of a thing, but the point of bringing it will appear quite soon. Now, this headline is, "Were Neanderthal men the Romeos of the prehistoric world?" Neanderthal men, were they the Romeos of the prehistoric world? Neanderthal men may have had a thing for modern human women. Or perhaps Neanderthal men had something human women couldn't resist. That's one potential interpretation of a new study, Gonz. Okay, just one potential interpretation of a new study published Thursday in Science that found when Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interbred, the pairings were predominantly between Neanderthal men and human women. Seems quite specific.
Sounds kind of familiar with the old
what
story there.
Scientists have to say here, Gonz. Scientists have long known that for some of our ancestors reproduced with Neanderthals before the species went extinct roughly 40,000 years ago. Today, traces of Neanderthal DNA linger in the genomes of many people, particularly among those with non-African ancestry. Meaning,
see,
people.
See, we always knew the white devil.
Whiteys, on average, it amounts to about 1 or 2% of a person's genome, which I think is actually quite high. However,
high. Yeah, I was going to say
these leftover bits of DNA aren't evenly distributed throughout the genome. Even in people with relatively high percentages of Neanderthal DNA, like 4%, there are specific regions of their genomes, particularly on their X chromosomes, that are devoid of it. These Neanderthal DNA-free zones, known as Neanderthal deserts, puzzled researchers. Many thought the deserts were the product of natural selection, eliminating undesirable bits of Neanderthal DNA over time. The new study instead argues that the gaps reflect an ancient pairing pattern between the two groups, rather than the steady removal of harmful genes. They're saying, turns out evolution might not have to do with this. Interesting thing to say, okay? There's been this long-standing, this is a quote, there's been this long-standing hypothesis that we modern humans have been shedding our Neanderthal DNA. Okay, I'm going to skip this guy. It just says the thing we already saw. Platt thought there was a better explanation to figure out how genes from the two species mixed. He and his colleagues examined 3 Neanderthal genomes. They also compared the data to African genomes without Neanderthal ancestry. They found that the X chromosomes of the Neanderthals contained about 60% more Homo sapiens DNA compared to their non-sex chromosomes or autosomes. The imbalance, researchers say, indicate that many of the Neanderthals' female forebearers were likely Homo sapiens.
Get in the somes. Autosomes.
They go into, that's very good. They go into a lot of DNA chromosome talk, but the theory.
The prehistoric wandering eye.
That's right.
Was it the eye of Horus?
The prehistoric wandering eye comes down to the fact that this alleged form of pre-human Neanderthal made a regular habit of the male Neanderthals chasing down the Homo sapien women. Very few, if any, female Neanderthal DNA has ever expressed itself in our bloodline today, which of course, this immediately brings up something we're all very familiar with here, something that has become extremely popular in the mainstream and the internet mainstream. And that is the fact that the scientists finally admit that the Nephilim are real and the sons of God came down and mated with human women and created a abominable class of Nephilim, the giants, the mighty men, and the reason that God needed to flood the entire earth and save Noah. And somehow these ding-dang Romeos survived the flood. We don't know exactly how, and we don't know exactly why. But it's nice to see that science is finally catching up once again with the biblical descriptions of history, Gonz.
Yeah, and for those, if you are not familiar, I would imagine if you're watching this, you are familiar, but this comes from Genesis 6, and Genesis 6:4 specifically, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God had relations with the daughters of men. If you look into the Hebrew there, it's the daughters of Adam, specifically, the word man or men being Adam. And they bore them children who became the mighty men of old, men of renown. That's Geborim or Geborim. And, the whole Old Testament stuff about wiping out those evil nations and genocide and all God so evil. A lot of it had to do with wiping out the giant tribes. And of course, everybody knows about the David and Goliath story. And, of course, the more astute scholars have pointed out that perhaps the death of Goliath was significant because it was the absolute end of this genetic abomination that somehow also survived the flood. And we don't know all the mechanics of what happened there. And, it's a long-standing debate if you're in-house. Yeah. So, really interesting. So Nat Geo's, they're catching up. They're catching up to the 6,000-year-old story of the Nephilim. That's good. Hey, they're making progress. Good job, National Geographic. Well
It says
done.
here in National Geographic, the reason these interspecies couplings largely involved male Neanderthals and female humans may remain. I mean, let's be honest. From what science tells us about Neanderthals and what they may have looked like, imagining Neanderthal women, I can see the appeal of human women. Okay. I get it. Look, I get it. If I was a Neanderthal man and I saw
that is your Neanderthal.
I'm just saying,
your 1% Neanderthal genes speaking.
It's the human women are the better of the two types of women, or perhaps there simply were no female Neanderthals. The reason these interspecies couplings largely involved male Neanderthals and female humans may remain a mystery to scientists, yes, because they're not reading their Bibles, and the findings don't reveal the social contexts that led to the pairings, ugly Nephilim women. But Platt and his colleagues have one possible theory that they think could be the simplest answer. Neanderthal men and human women may have potentially found each other particularly attractive. And the evil, rebellious Elohim were trying to destroy the creation of God's masterpiece and wanted to corrupt the seed line of human beings out of perhaps jealousy or the pure malevolence. I don't know. That's in the subtext. You got to check the index.
Well, Genesis 6 in verse 2, it does say that the sons of God, or the Bnei Ha-Elohim, saw that the daughters of men were beautiful.
Exactly.
And they took them as wives, whomever they chose.
It's right there in the Bible, scientists.
The Bible, yeah. I don't know. It's starting to sound a lot like Genesis 6 there, Platt.
Now, this could have been look, we ran out of time a little bit on Monday. We didn't have time to do this story. Maybe I should have planned it earlier, like this episode, do it first. Because, I thought this was a pretty good catch. I mean, National Geographic basically saying, yeah, Neanderthals were Nephilim. And kind of went.
Wait, hold on. That's going to confuse people. Neanderthals would be the offspring the Nephilim would be the offspring of the Neanderthal and the human women. So the Neanderthal would be the watchers.
They would be the watchers. The Neanderthals, which is funny because, Neanderthals are generally, at least in colloquial culture here in America, you think of Neanderthals and you think of like cavemen, not smart, stupid, ooga booga, kind of kind of vibes. Well, if the Neanderthals were the Watchers, I mean, they cruised in, taught these human women how to wear makeup and how to wear jewelry, taught
Yeah,
the
they were
men how to
smart.
build swords. And you know, if a Watcher comes down and teaches you how to build a sword and a spear and some armor and all this cool stuff, and then he turns around and says, you know, your human women are pretty beautiful. I mean, I could teach you some more I could teach you about antimony if you want, but I'm going to need to take a human wife. You could see how the less gentlemanly humans of the time may have made that deal. But that's extra biblical. Now, I, as always, should never skip a story when something like this happens, because this would have been Monday. What was Monday? Was that the second?
The second, yes.
The second, yes. This would have been the second that we would have blown this story wide open. But because we waited, on March 3rd, Charisma Magazine headline, scientists are rediscovering the Nephilim and refusing to say it. And this is a Charisma Magazine. It's really embarrassing when Charisma Magazine breaks a fringe Christian story like this before Canary Cry. It really is a low point in my career personally, Gonz. But you know,
well,
it's
to
also
be fair,
Mhm.
I was
Well,
going
I
to say,
was gonna
Charisma
say-
Magazine has reported on L.A. Marzulli's stuff, and so they've kind of had this in their
You know, recently it's
milieu.
interesting because we
Yeah.
have followed Charisma magazines. I don't know if it's a leading indicator or a lagging indicator, but back in my day, when I was a young teen Christian, Charisma magazine. I mean, Charisma magazine's kind of all over the place now. But back when I was a young Christian whippersnapper, it was very, very mainstream. Like, it was not weird or fringy at all. Like, they didn't. It was like dentist office style magazine. That was not very harmful or I guess fringy at all. But over the years, we have seen them cross over. Now it is annoying. You have a beautiful setup over on your computer, Gonz, where you are not absolutely flooded with all the banner ads that come flying at you when you go to Charisma magazine.
Yeah, I put on the full armor of the browser, and it just protects me from all the ads. Yes.
Charisma magazine. Here's just a little intro to their thing here. A new study reported by the Daily Mail. Okay. They didn't even take the study from National Geographic.
they got it third hand. The National Geographic to the Daily Mail to Charisma Magazine.
Why not go back to the source? Charisma Magazine. Okay. Reported by the Daily Mail, claims that interbreeding between Neanderthals and modern humans was largely sex-based. Yeah, well, that is how interbreeding works, Charisma Magazine. According to the report, quote, the pairings were mostly between male Neanderthals and female Homo sapiens. And you get it. They go on. They make almost as laborious of a presentation of the science as we did here. So very good, Charisma Magazine, for catching that. And I will never leave a National Geographic story on the cutting room floor again.
You know what's really interesting is that this theme of going back and looking at the genetics, it's very much part of the milieu now.
Cause I'm DNA.
Speaking of Daily Mail, on February 27th, the Daily Mail published this article, The Explosive Bible Theory That Links Noah's Ark to the 8 Modern Blood Types in Humans. And so there's a lot of interest in sort of the genetic lineage of humanity.
Genetic one for sure.
Yeah. So
saying like Noah, each of Noah's sons or daughters had a different blood type, and that's
yes. So the controversial theory linking the 8 survivors of Noah's Ark to the 8 human blood types has sparked a debate over the origins of humanity. According to the Bible, yes, we know about Noah and his 3 sons and their wives, and yes, they attribute it one to each individual, I suppose, which is, I mean, this conversation has been around I mean, if you've been down this rabbit hole, it's an old debate. It's not a new debate, but it's all getting brought to the surface now, which I find very interesting and suspicious.
Well, at least put in the
So-
spotlight, that's
right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Who would have without like Doug Hamp or something would have
Yeah,
told
Doug
us
Hamp,
about it. It's like
corrupting the image.
corrupting the image.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Rob Skiba talked about his theory about the bloodline of Ham being maybe responsible for carrying the Nephilim genome, or like Ham's wife carrying the genome. So there's that type O negative, like, oh, if you're type O negative, you're Nephilim kind of thing. So
Ham's
there's a lot of stuff.
She was a human female. We do know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Interestingly enough, another story that came through on the Daily Mail was science now says that there was an earthquake at the moment of Jesus's crucifixion. It's like,
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, good.
I think I mentioned it on, I think it was a solo episode I did. I believe I did mention that story.
Daily Mail getting into the
I know
stuff.
They must have looked at our algos and thought, man, these guys, because there was a period where we really leaned into a lot of Daily Mail.
They're certainly not looking at our algos if they're trying
not
to
our
make
algos, but they're seeing, who was really reporting on those stories that they had, and we picked up a lot of Daily Mail stories for a little while there.
is
But
catching up. The culture's catching up.
catching
All right.
up.
Well, we're going to get into some very exciting news here in just a moment. Don't worry, you're not going to you hear the propaganda rooster going on.
Rooster's going.
The good stuff is coming, but just for 1 second, Gonz, I want to thank our executive producers for today, because we are on the value for value model. You'll notice no advertisements, no platform partnerships, no nothing. Gonz's X account gets 500,000 views and isn't even monetized, and that's because
$0.
Value for value model, which is a good way for us to stay accountable and credible, because that there is not a penny of corporate support coming to keep this show going. And
just as your
consciousness and your trust is not monetized. And isn't that a relief? How often can you literally say during your day that your attention is not being monetized? It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I did see a note that there were some influencers on X that were promised some payments for saying some things about a particular nation state out there in the Middle East, and they did so on the timeline, and they were not paid, and so they are mad, and they are suing the nation or the people behind whatever. So
ironic. It's an ironic,
isn't it? Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you get any value from the show, you're one of the human beings on this earth responsible for helping us keep it going. If you get value, you can put value in with your time, your talent, your treasure, lots of ways to do it. But our executive producers, they come in, they support the show for $100 or more for any individual episode. So they get a shout out here at the top. Are you ready, Gonz?
Ready.
Big ol' shout out to executive produceress, Mrs. Tinfoil Hatman.
Hey, Mrs. Tinfoil Hatman. Thank you.
Tinfoil Hatman comes in for $111.11.
111.
That's how you do it, folks. That's how you do it. 111. Mrs. Tinfoil Hatman sent a message here. It says, "Thank you both for all you do. Praying for y'all, Mrs. Tinfoil Hatman." And then she ends with a scripture here, Romans 15:13. "May the God of hope fill you all with joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." Amen.
Amen.
Oh, and this is for Mrs. Tinfoil Hatman.
Women rule.
Just cover your head there for the, because the angels. Just be careful.
Yeah.
Make sure Mr. Tinfoil Hatman is covering you. So
Gotta watch out being a human woman these days. Thank you very much. Executive producer, Mrs. Tinfoil Hatman. Next up, we have the one, the only executive producer, Sir LX Protocol, V2, Baron of the Berean Protocol. Coming in once again for $100.33.
Illuminatus.
He is on a 467 episode streak and a 121 executive producer streak.
wait, wasn't it 121 last episode?
I don't think so.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you, Protocol.
Those are our executive producers for the day. Make sure to thank them in the chat or in the street. If you see them, buy them a coffee. And if you really love them, you'll get them some Cage Rattler coffee. Speaking of Mrs. Tinfoil Hat, man, we've got Cage Rattler coffee. Go there, CageRattlerCoffee.com. We want to give them a shout out because they're doing amazing things. Cage Rattler coffee is by Canarians for Canarians. And I was getting a little worried, Gonz, because I finished off a bag of my Cage Rattler coffee yesterday. And I was like, oh, no, tomorrow I'm going to have whatever's just, the little crumbles of beans in the bottom of the whatever. But luckily, I reached back into the very back of the cupboard, and there was another bag of Cage Rattler coffee, which is why I am so energetic today.
Cage Rattler coffee. Where value for value never tasted so good.
Yeah.
But seriously, look, we all drink coffee. You're gonna do. I mean, God bless you if you don't. Send me your secrets. But we have gotten. It almost feels like a requirement that we give our money, our hard-earned money, that the treasure that God gives us, an expression of the energy of, our work or our hours work, our labor or our cleverness or whatever. We are forced to give that money to corporations who hate us all the time. Sometimes there's no choice. Sometimes we have a choice, but it's just too inconvenient. But coffee companies especially do not deserve the support of the people whom they dislike, perhaps even hate. I don't know. We got these big, huge coffee companies with their moldy coffee and their bad tasting beans and their, weird ideology seeping into their corporate structure. And it's no longer shall we support them. Instead, Cage Rattler coffee is created, roasted, sourced, packaged, sent so lovingly with producers of this show, by producers of this show, that we can rest assured that any Cage Rattler coffee purchases are actually supporting important, beautiful Christians who are helping keep this show alive. So I highly recommend it. People tell me how great it is all the time. 973 texted just today and says, got that Phillips 3300 to really get the most out of the Cage Rattler coffee. I'm assuming Phillips 3300 is either a grinder or a coffee machine. Somebody can tell me.
I am not privy. I am not privy to the models. Yeah, we might have to look into that.
Got the Phillips 3300 to really get the most out of the Cage Rattler coffee. Thought I would save money, but now I'm drinking 3 times as much coffee. Well, that's how it happens. That
could happen. Yeah.
Isn't it? It's like, in biblical times, your wealth was measured by the flocks of your field. And now, we can measure true earthly wealth through the cups of coffee that we get to experience. Especially, I'm looking up the Phillips 3300 on Amazon. It's a beautiful machine. Looks like an espresso. I can concur that with your Cage Rattler coffee, going with the espresso machine is a good idea.
Yes.
Not because a regular coffee machine is bad Cage Rattler coffee, but once I made the switch to the espresso, you really can slam some Cage Rattler coffee all morning long. That is an expensive coffee machine. Good for you. Good for you.
Wow, that thing looks sophisticated. Is that a touch screen on there? What is going on with this
touch screen? It's got lots of stainless steel. It's costs hundreds of dollars. God bless you. And the Lord is obviously blessing the flocks of your field. 973. All right, there you go. Go to CageRattlerCoffee.com, everybody. Yep. And one last announcement before we jump into the news. We got a message from Sir Ike about a rating and review giveaway going on. So let's go ahead and play his message.
Hey, Canary family, this is Sir Ike here. I want to give an announcement out today that I am getting ready to start another rating and a review giveaway. My wife and I have been going through some supply drop stuff this past weekend, and I have 4 mega boxes. And by mega boxes, I mean mega boxes. There's probably the equivalence of 2 or 3 years worth of supply drops in each one of these boxes that I will be giving away randomly to whoever will leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcatcher you use. Screenshot that and email that to canarycrysupplydrop@gmail.com, and I'll get you on the list. I'll probably be doing one of these giveaways every other week for the next month or so. So if you want to increase your chances, get in early, and I'll put you on the list. Think outside the cage.
There you go.
Very much, sir.
Excellent.
You heard that, folks. The Apple Podcast rating and review system is very, very helpful for us. But a lot of people don't listen on that. Wherever you listen or watch the show, usually ratings and reviews are happening on like podcast apps or Spotify or Apple Podcast, wherever, whatever. If you don't listen to the show in a place that you can leave a rating and review, go find one. Start with Apple Podcasts, see if you can leave one there. And it's very, very helpful. We have not done call outs for ratings and reviews in a really long time. But it's extremely helpful, especially at times like this. So leave a rating and a review, screenshot it, with your little camera there or with your phone, and email that screenshot to canarycrysupplydrop@gmail.com. canarycrysupplydrop@gmail.com, and you'll get put on the list for this giveaway. It is this might be the biggest giveaway that Sir Ike's ever done. So this is a great time to do it if you've never done it.
Excellent.
All right.
Awesome.
Anything
Just as a side note, you had mentioned biblical wealth as part of your little rant there.
Mm-hmm.
And just as I was curious, I was reading the book of Ezra. And of course, that's the minor prophet, the book where it talks about Israel going back to the homeland, back to Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of that, they gave all kinds of stuff to the families that were trekking back to Jerusalem. And I noticed that my translation said that they got 62,000 gold coins, and I think it was like 6,000 silver ounces or something. Anyway, I did the math. I was like, I wonder in modern dollars how much gold and silver that was way back in the day. I think there was about 42,000 Israelites who trekked back to Jerusalem after being in captivity. And the math comes out, Basil, $100 million in today's dollars, which amounts to about $2,500 per person. And I'm sure the dollar went a little further back then. I mean, they didn't have the dollar, obviously, but it was before inflation, so. But I just thought it was an interesting little study. If you ever go do some math and look at how much wealth was moving around back in the day, man, they were doing well back then. I mean, they didn't have the internet, but they did have some heavy bags of gold and silver they had to carry around, along with, cows and all kinds of stuff, goats.
Gotta carry those cows.
Yeah.
Gotta carry those cows.
Roosters, maybe.
Folks.
Biblenomics, yes.
Oh,
there you go. That's it.
Let's jump back into the news here. All right. Now, this series of events I found extremely interesting, especially for those longtime listeners who have heard me rant about certain pieces of history before. I'm going to start out. Do we have a jingle or anything for this?
I've been kind of digging around looking for this jingle. And
do you have a World War III jingle? We got one of those.
World War III. I don't know why this computer is acting extremely slow today. I'm getting a lot of spinning wheel of death as part of this situation here. Oh my goodness. All right. Hold on.
Yet you're still here. And yet you live.
Here. I live.
Lord
I know.
Sustains you.
Yes. Here we go. This is World War III.
World War III. We can fight the Third World War down there.
There we go. Beautiful. Okay. This headline coming from Tomorrow's Affairs. Strait of Hormuz, formally open, effectively closed.
Okay.
We're going to get into this. Okay. Look, over every day, there's about a dozen new clips and events and arguments, political debates about this whole thing. And look, it's just, most of it is not important. Okay. Most of it is just keeping the frenzy of the news cycle and everybody fighting and arguing and getting everybody all riled up. Okay. And in these times when we can see the big picture and you're scrolling and you're looking and these events are coming at you at lightning speed, there's a certain skill, a certain peace that can overcome you when you have spent so much time doing what we do here, and you're able to see through the fog of war at the things that are going on under the surface and the sort of spiritual ancestry of those involved, and how amazing it is that we see these certain storylines and these certain spiritual movements going on over and over and over the millennia, even all the way back to biblical times. And it's sort of astounding to me, and I think very important when we're taking the stance of taking a big cosmic view, right? We're zooming back. We're not obsessing about every little, argument or every little news clip or every little whatever thing that we can complain about. And it's like looking out. You climbed a mountain, you look at the horizon, and it's sort of awe-inspiring. That's the kind of thing we're looking for. So, Strait of Hormuz, formerly open, effectively closed. The Strait of Hormuz is that little body of water that Iran sort of de facto controls. It is where a ton of the global oil and gas supply moves through, and Iran is sort of famous for kind of acting as a toll booth. There's about 33 kilometers wide piece of water just on the edge of Iran there, and basically their entire navy is built specifically for extorting ships coming through.
Just before we move on, we don't have a jingle, but we did have this from Caleb. Which is basically, you and I rocking out on a pirate ship. So
I Cry Pirates. That's good.
Yeah, that's close enough.
That's good. Keep that handy because we'll talk more about pirates in a moment. Okay. All right. Strait of Hormuz, formerly open, effectively closed. On the 28th of February, about an hour after the start of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, Iran's Revolutionary Guard began sending warnings via standard VHF channels to merchant vessels in the Persian Gulf, stating that transit through the Strait of Hormuz was not permitted. No attacks on merchant vessels were recorded, nor were mines laid or tankers intercepted. Nevertheless, by the morning of March 1st, approximately 70% of normal shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz had been suspended. The cause was not a physical threat at sea, but an assessment of unacceptable risk by shippers and insurers. An official from the European Union's Maritime Security Mission, ASPIDES, confirmed to Reuters on the 28th of February that ships in the region were receiving Iranian VHF no passage messages. The UK Maritime Trade Operations issued its own warning, noting that such messages are not legally binding under the international maritime law. So you had Iran sending warnings to all the ships in the area, and you had the UK and the European Union saying, okay, but hey, ships, that's not actually legally binding. So, says here, that is formally correct. Iran is not signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. That sounds cool. The Law of the Sea. Oman, which controls the southern coast of the Strait, is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. However, legal status does not eliminate operational risk. Shippers do not make decisions based on legal theory, but on insurance and liability.
Several for so many things.
Several major shipping companies have suspended transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Hapag-Lloyd suspended passage while Nippon Yusen ordered its fleet to avoid the area. Oil and LNG companies have stopped delivery. Lloyd's of London and international war risk insurers increased premiums by about 50%. The rise in premiums led to the withdrawal of insurance cover for a significant part of the fleet, making transit operationally unsustainable. So, the bombing begins. Iran, amongst the rest of their responses, shooting missiles in every direction at all neighboring countries, sends a message, says, hey, it's closed. Well, Iran doesn't technically control the whole thing, and Oman is, one of the neighboring things. Oman is a little bit more in good with the international law of the sea. And so it's decided, hey, it's not actually illegal, guys. You can go through. But it became quickly not legal for many of these ships to go through the Strait because Lloyd's of London and a collection of other international insurers basically canceled everybody's insurance before they could go through. Now,
lawfare, man.
We've all had this happen before. Your health insurance gets canceled. My health insurance got canceled 2 weeks before my appendix burst. Thankfully, I was able to fix the problem before I went septic.
Had to fix your physical problem.
Yeah. But you gotta now let's take a snapshot of the real forces at work here. Lloyd's of London specifically is not just an insurance company, but it is one of the, I guess, dynasties that is at the core of the entire post-World War II liberal economic order. We're talking City of London. We're talking Illuminati. We're talking the world order that is basically at war with the new world order of, I'm talking Trump's golden age new world order, where he's trying to, kind of disassemble the entire financial power structure of the entire world and replace it with a sort of technocracy run by, tech oligarchs and cryptocurrency. You zoom out far enough, and what we see here is not necessarily just, first of all, these ships had insurance specifically for war and terrorism. And isn't that just like a insurance company to cancel the exact insurance you need exactly?
But we've been making payments the whole time for this particular thing. And then right before the thing happens, they cancel it. It's a scam.
It's all a scam.
Such a big scam.
But you have, Lloyd's of London, not just an insurer, but this, like I said, sort of dynastic organization of, the golden core of like deep state Illuminati.
Their website says here, our multinational capability. Lloyd's is unique as a global insurer of multinational customers. 80 insurance licenses. Yeah, they're all over the place.
They're basically, I mean, you're talking like the Berkshire Hathaway of type thing. And it's interesting. It puts an interesting spin on what we're seeing because, more or less, Iran had a lot of other things to worry about than firing missiles at random ships passing by. Not to say it's like out of their purview. They've done it a lot. That's why you need insurance to go through the Strait. But I kind of see an interesting, bigger, broader, of course we know spiritual battle, but that spiritual battle can also sort of represent this great powers battle. And you have this like City of London, Illuminati monetary control of the world group, sort of hamstringing and creating, if not just exacerbating, perhaps even creating the situation that results in what we've seen the past couple of days, which is huge economic disruptions, because of, oil and gas not getting through the Strait. I think, LNG went up 50 to 75% in Europe. Like, people are trying to warm their houses or whatever, and suddenly they've already gotten totally turned over because of, the Nord Stream pipeline in Russia, getting all their gas from the people they're fighting, blah, blah, blah. And then it adds another 50 to 75% on top of that. Europe is really getting squeezed. You can see the price of oil went up, a barrel of oil went up 50% or something. Everything you'd expect. But it's interesting because it's not even necessarily because these ships are getting destroyed, but the deep state insurance companies are like, nah, you're just not insured anymore. We're going to play a part in the economic damage. You have Lloyd's of London and others playing a direct part in the economic damage.
You're on your own, ships.
Yeah.
Too bad if something happens to you. We're not going to cover if something goes down.
And, that's the thing. Iran's Navy is, it was designed and built in-house specifically to be able to control the Strait of Hormuz. One interesting thing with their Navy is, they have a pretty significant Navy fleet, anywhere between 11 and 17, battleship things. They have these little speed boats that launch missiles. They're pretty tailor-made to hold the Strait of Hormuz. Well, we did get a message from CENTCOM on X. It's part of a longer
it's like an 8-minute speech right off the CENTCOM account. Yeah.
But here's the update on the Iranian Navy.
We are also sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Thus far, we've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including the most operational Iranian submarine that now has a hole in its side. For decades, the Iranian regime has harassed international shipping. Today, there's not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman.
Okay.
So, Iranians' Navy gets taken out in about 24 hours, and these threats they're sending out are, basically not supported by anything. And this is at the same time that the insurers are pulling the insurance. We're seeing this great economic battle be waged. But I don't think Lloyd's of London remembers their history very much. I know the Canary Cry family is aware of the very important topic I'm about to go into, and people forget this. When they think of America, they think of a lot of things, but they often forget that America loves boats. We love boats. We love the Navy. We basically invented the modern Navy, going all the way back to the Barbary Wars. America is the global hegemon, or at least was the global hegemon, specifically because of the founding fathers' and their predecessors' obsession with boats. Now, if you forget America's obsession with boats, you might wonder why a tweet like this comes out from Donald Trump. I guess it was a truth, but this was Donald Trump's response to Lloyd's of London and the economic, slave drivers of the world canceling everybody's insurance. He says, effective immediately, I have ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation, DFC, to provide at a very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for the financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy traveling through the Gulf. This will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. No matter what, the United States will ensure the free flow of energy to the world. The United States' economic and military might is the greatest on earth. More actions to come. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And again,
okay, so he's stepping in, filling the void.
You might be thinking, okay, what's the big deal? Okay, he's going to provide. This strikes at the very core of American hegemony. Okay. Now let's remember, Donald Trump talks a lot about America. He's the president of America. Everything he says and does is in the name of America, or what he wants for America, what a lot of people want for America. But for those who are paying attention, we know that what Donald Trump refers to as America is just a part of a grander vision. And that grander vision is the TECHNATE. We've talked about the TECHNATE. His ancestors, it's weird to say ancestors when it was just about 100 years ago, but Donald Trump's ancestors, Elon Musk's ancestors, many of the people in power now have direct relational ties with Technocracy Incorporated, a political organization created in the 1920s who had this idea that America, Mexico, Canada, Greenland should all be one big zone called the TECHNATE. And not just that it's one big country, but it's also ruled by technocrats, engineers,
the engineers, the scientists, and the mathematicians, because they'll be more efficient.
That's right. Ruled by science, basically, or what they would call science, ruled by technocrats. So you got to remember, Trump is a technocrat. He's taken step after step after step to move us all into what he calls the golden age and what we would call, the dystopian beast system that we hear about in the book of Revelation. But also this, this idea that, politicians are one thing, but we really need a sort of technocratic oligarchy. And you see this in almost everything he does, from geopolitics to this, to that, to the economy, etc. So we know this, and it's important to remember that, because without remembering that, and without me saying it out loud now, somebody might be mistaken about what I see happening and might annoy me on Twitter or something. So we know the technocracy is the goal, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, Trump's ancestry is technocracy. America's ancestry is in boats. It's in boats. It's in being the world police, specifically when it comes to shipping, ships, pirates. You know it. I know it. The Barbary Wars. America would not be what it is today if it weren't for the Barbary Wars. And as a review for people, there's a couple Barbary Wars, but the long and short of the story is that Barbary pirates from Tripoli were demanding payment from any ship to come through their territory, which in their mind, the entire Mediterranean was their territory. And if you didn't pay the toll, they just stole all your stuff. And this was a huge problem. America was a very young country at this time. America was very isolated. We're in the new world. There wasn't other countries for us to trade with. We had to the only way for America to, get money was from shipping things to the old world, shipping things to Europe, whether it's tobacco or cotton or whatever. This was, the only way the United States got such really any firm footing in being an actual nation. And so early America built a ton of ships, made all their money shipping stuff to Europe. And then these Barbary pirates started, pirating. And Europe had its own problems with these pirates and their own history. But America said, no, let's just do this. Let's just make all of our ships, sort of destructive juggernauts. And we'll go over there and we're not going to pay the toll, and we're just going to kill all the pirates, and we're going to kill them good, and we're going to kill them over and over and over. And then we're going to burn their cities. And then we're going to keep in mind, this is literally half the world away. America created a little organization called the United States Marines and put those Marines on boats and basically took over the Mediterranean with more or less nobody's help. So that, I mean, this is a huge part of American history that doesn't get talked about a lot. And without this part of American history, we just simply would not be the military hegemon that we are. So it is a sort of direct tie to more or less our everyday experience. And Americans, well, at least America, the spirit of America, really is in being the world police via boat. And here we are, once again, stepping in to a archetypal role, something that is so very American, saying, hey, entire world, don't worry. We will escort you. We will protect you. This is a pretty huge philosophical, spiritual, theoretical sort of throwback to what even made America exist in the first place. And I don't think it should be sort of misunderstood or underappreciated, because everything we see going on now, we know is a reflection of a spiritual war going on. It's not just a speech somebody gives. It's not just a world event. It's not just, these are simply just the sort of physical manifestations of a spiritual realm that is just, just beyond our view, just beyond our understanding. But when we see, I mean, specifically, Trump has done this, and whether the chaos magician himself knows that he's doing it, or whether it's just a reflection of spiritual things going on, when he does things like this, it really is hearkening in a very deep, profound way to what made America America. But keep in mind, and this is where we shouldn't get distracted, because one might be tempted to say, oh, Basil, you're just getting swept up in the pro-America propaganda. You're just, make America great again, Basil. Oh, he's Trump. He's a rich bad guy. He doesn't care about America. No, you're missing the point. The point is, much like Freemasonic rituals, much like a lot of these ritualistic or ceremonial things we see at the Olympics or the Super Bowl or whatever, the same principle applies to these major events. And referring back to taking the stance, not just the political stance, but sort of the spiritual stance that America and its Navy will take on the responsibility for the entire world to make sure that ships can go where they're going, is, has a pretty profound reflection.
I mean, the founding of our country, literally, as you have spoken about, it really does go back to the Continental Navy and the whole thing. Just real quick, I have a graphic that I was showing a little earlier. This is the technocratic conscriptions. So they have a list here. Now, I'm just going to read this real quick because you got your Lauren Borbart and like these other people that are speaking things that sound good. And actually, I can say, let's go for some of this stuff.
Well, it wouldn't work if it didn't sound good. And I thank you for bringing this up, because I think this brings up the point. I'm going to let you read it. That we have to remember, when Trump advocates for America, we are supposed to get the impression that he's advocating for the America that we have conceptualized, that the propaganda and the patriotism and all this stuff, we think of America as this singular country, exceptional in every way. And I'm not saying it's not, but, we have a very specific and small conception of America compared to what he advocates for and he worked towards and what he's building right in front of our eyes, which is the TECHNATE version of America. This sort of, bigger than we can even really understand. And it's not just landmass, but it's also organization. It's also technocracy. It's also, all these things. So read this and we'll hear it in the context of the version of America that not only Trump is advocating for, but his friends and his family for generations have been directly involved. I mean, what was it? His uncle or his dad or something?
MIT. Yeah, his
May
uncle was
have,
part
like,
of MIT. Yeah, the whole
the
Tesla
I mean,
papers.
he was in the Technocracy Inc. actual organization. You
That
know,
was Elon's uncle or something,
no,
grandpa or granduncle.
we've got Elon was involved and Trump's family was involved. But the point being that, like, the thing you're about to read may have, like, been written by, like, Elon's grandpa or Trump's uncle or so, or like whatever.
Right.
They may have, like, approved it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So the name that gets thrown around is Howard Scott as the founder of the Technocracy Inc. back in the 20s. But this is a document from several decades ago. The total conscription of technocracy includes an end to exporting for profit. Okay. An end to the paying of rent. Forgiveness of all forms of debt.
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
An ending of corporate expansion. That one's interesting, given the current situation of our military-industrial complex and everything else. An end to the paying of taxes.
Woo!
No more foreign ownership. Another one that's kind of okay. An end to political corruption and bungling. So
who could disagree with that?
Yeah.
You know what it is very reflective of? Elon's, description of when all of his robots will be out. He was recently talking about the universal high income. He says, don't even bother saving for retirement, because when my robots are out, labor will be so cheap that, money won't even matter when we go full technocracy. Don't worry, you have nothing to worry about. I mean, it's reflected directly in Elon's, little interviews he's given recently.
So it was Elon Musk's maternal grandfather, Joshua N. Haldeman, who was a prominent figure in the Canadian wing of Technocracy Inc. In fact, he got arrested for it. I think he went to jail because he was part of Technocracy Inc. back in the day.
Yeah.
So, and that's why when Elon and Trump were buddy, people that knew that background, they're looking at it going, why are they so buddy? What's going on here? And I think the agenda was the 120-year-old plan for a technocratic America. And here we are. We're doing it. We're actually doing it. Trump's doing it.
Multi-generational sort of dynastic project to make this technocracy thing happen. Now, here's another interesting thing. Okay, so we kind of get an idea. This whole thing's a pretty big deal, but not in the way that the news wants us to think. We've got a much bigger, broader, again, intergenerational idea of what exactly is being built around us, sort of disguised as classic imperialism. And along with that, of course, there's detractors. Now, I want to mention something else about the Barbary Wars, okay? So I can't go into all the history, but these Barbary pirates, they were really causing a lot of trouble, okay? It's not like pirates, how we think of them now, where it's like an individual ship or like, Somali pirates whizzing around, kind of trying their best to jump on people's boats. This was basically an entire empire of pirates. And they weren't just messing with America's shipping. They were messing around with the entire world's shipping. Europe had been dealing with these pirates for like 100 years or something before the Marines came in and just mopped the place up. But there was a very particular actor back in the Barbary Wars, and this actor was Spain. Now, Spain, right there in the Mediterranean, right? They certainly had to deal with these Barbary pirates for a long, long time. And when America shows up and say, hey, okay, we can't deal with these pirates anymore, guys. They're ruining everything. We can't just have pirates like ruining the entire global shipping of the earth. We can't.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? And Europe was like, I mean, what do they do? I don't know. Just whatever. And Spain actually played a role. Spain turns to America and says, look, just pay the pirates, okay? Don't cause any trouble. Just pay them their tribute and ship through the water. Okay, look, nobody needs to fight. Nobody needs to fight with pirates. Just pay the pirates the money they want, and then we can keep things going. And America turns to Spain and says, "Oh, we'll pay the pirates, all right," and then sent the Marines and destroyed their entire empire. So Spain, again, to the sort of spiritual ancestry of what we're seeing reflected today, they were kind of an interesting figure in America's, I guess, journey to becoming the global military, specifically naval hegemon to protect the entire Earth's shipping economy. And it's interesting because you look out today and we had this clip. Where's the clip?
The Trump clip?
Yes, it's the Trump clip. Spain, well, they were causing a little bit of trouble with the whole thing going on right now. And Trump actually explains it in this clip. Let's play that.
Some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
Just going to cut off trade with Spain. We have this history repeating itself of Spain going, no, America, you can't use our bases, okay? We're not going to let you fly planes in and out. We don't like what you're doing with Iran. You're causing too much trouble. We don't like trouble. Specifically, the Spanish government said, hey, your operations aren't sanctioned by the United Nations. They say you can use our bases if you are doing United Nations sanctioned operations, which that's kind of laughable now after what we've seen with the Board of Peace and the United Nations and everything recently. But they said, no, you can't use it. And Trump is like just channeling. I think it was George Washington during the Barbary Wars, who was, he was the president of the country during at least parts of the Barbary Wars. It was like, no, we're just going to kill the pirates, okay? I don't know. You do your thing. We're just going to kill all the pirates. And Trump is very much like channeling George Washington from the Barbary Wars. Like, yeah, okay, Spain, we're just going to keep doing our thing, specifically cutting off all trade, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, it's a pretty big threat. There's been some court cases recently about Trump's ability to do things like tariffs and embargoes. The Supreme Court just recently confirmed his ability to do certain economic things like embargoes and certain kinds of tariffs. And so he's feeling pretty confident. He says, okay, look, Spain didn't want to increase their spending like every other European nation did. This is part of his thing last year, was getting all the European nations to commit to protecting themselves, spending 5% of GDP on military, which I'm pretty sure every European nation agreed to, except for Spain. Because if you're Spain, you've got the entire continent of Europe between you and your enemy, Russia, right? So Spain's kind of like, look, if Russia's going to get us, he's going to have to go through everybody else. If they get to us, then, we have bigger problems. So no, we're not going to protect ourselves.
Yeah, this is almost 232 years to the day. It was March 20th of 1794. This is according to Wikipedia about the Barbary Wars here, but it's at the urging of President George Washington, Congress voted to authorize the building of 6 heavy frigates, and establish the United States Navy in order to stop these attacks and the demands for more and more money.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the, there you go.
It didn't even have a navy until these pirates came along, and then
Yeah.
suddenly we had a navy and the Marines.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a pretty flippant remark there by Trump. Just, hey, whatever, you don't want to play with us, we don't need you to play with us. We'll just stop trading with you altogether, which is a pretty, kind of a pretty gnarly threat. Well, it didn't take long until this announcement came from what's her name? Levitt, White House press secretary.
Carolyn? Is
Yeah,
that her
Carolyn.
name?
Good afternoon, everyone. With respect to Spain, I think they heard the president's message yesterday loud and clear. And it's my understanding over the past several hours, they've agreed to cooperate with the U.S. military. And so I know that the U.S. military is coordinating with their counterparts in Spain. But the president expects all of our European allies, of course, to cooperate in this long sought after mission, not just for the United States, but also for Europe, to crush the rogue Iranian regime that, again, not only threatens America, but also threatens our European allies as well.
Okay,
There
so
you go.
Spain bend the knee. They said, all right, Trump, we'll deal with you.
They said, okay, yeah, hey, we're playing tough. We're not going to, you're okay. We'll actually get punished for this. Okay, then fine. No, we'll cooperate with you. And this is kind of a really classic, this is a classic pattern with Trump. Of course, many nations, they want to kind of at least virtue signal, say, no, you can't do the thing. And then he says, okay, well, then I'm going to tariff you. And then, okay, all right, do the thing, but we're not happy about it. And so we get this announcement here. Strangely, basically moments after Carolyn Levitt makes this announcement, a story came out from AP. Spain's government denies cooperating with the U.S. operations in Middle East, contradicting White House. A diplomatic tussle between the United States and Spain over the war in Iran intensified on Wednesday when the governments exchanged contradictory statements over the possible use of Spanish military bases by American armed forces for operations in the Middle East. Moments after a White House spokesperson said the Spanish government in Madrid had agreed to help the U.S., Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez came out and flatly denied that the European government had changed its position. Quote, I can refute, the White House spokesperson Alvarez told the Spanish radio station Cadena Ser, quote, the position of the Spanish government regarding the war in the Middle East, the bombing of Iran, and the use of our bases has not changed one iota. So who knows what's going on?
What is going on?
To some degree, he said this on a Spanish radio station, so it could very well just be the Spanish government taking, saying one thing to their people while telling the American government something else.
There's some gray area, because they could be coming from the perspective of, hey, we haven't come to any agreement, but from the U.S. perspective is, hey, they're having a conversation, so it could be just a misinterpretation or narrative craft from both sides to appease their crowd, so to speak.
It makes I sit here and I wonder, okay, there could be some sort of middle ground where they can use the base until they come to who knows, right? But then you go, okay, who benefits? Does Trump benefit, or does Carolyn Levitt benefit from lying about having Spain's support, or does Spain benefit by claiming that they're not cooperating?
Right.
It feels like maybe Spain would have more to gain about denying cooperation, but who knows? And it doesn't really matter in the end. I mean, it's not going to change anything, but it is kind of funny. Spain specifically playing their role, playing their part again in another version of the Barbary Wars there.
Yeah. Well, history doesn't repeat, but it tends to rhyme. So here's another iteration, a true archetype, as you said earlier. This is
once you can kind of broaden your your scope a little bit. It's interesting how the details almost matter so little when the broad sort of gears of history are just rotating right in front of your eyes. On a similar note, when it comes to whatever's going on with Spain, or do they have some secret deal or what's going on, it is alleged that let me see if I pulled this up. Shoot, did I put the thing? Okay, so it is alleged. Let's see here. CNN. Let me give you. I'm gonna put this link right below the Spain things. I'll put it beneath the Barbary Wars right before our next one.
Okay. Just drop it.
I'm dropping it. Here we go. Booyah.
Boom. Look at that. Wow. Wonderful.
So this is CNN reporting today. Iranian intelligence sends word to U.S. on potential talks to end the war, but U.S. officials say no active negotiations.
Okay.
Now listen to this. It gets kind of funky. Unless they edit it since I first had it open, Iranian intelligence has sent word to the United States that it could be prepared to open talks on how to end the war, according to people familiar with the indirect messages.
I can't keep up with this drama. This is like a reality TV show.
It's right. It's CNN. So like,
that's true. It's CNN.
It's CNN. So how far can they possibly get from having any actual source without having to like admit it? This is like where
people
they
familiar with the indirect messages. Okay.
The indirect.
Got it.
Why indirect? They're familiar with the indirect. What?
I mean, we are familiar with the indirect messages. I mean, if you want to call that a source, we are a source.
And it gets even kind of crazier. So according to people familiar with the indirect messages, but U.S. officials say there are no negotiations underway and that potential off-ramps are unlikely to materialize in the near term. So the impression they're getting, CNN is giving, is Iran wants to talk. Iran wants to negotiate, right? Trump's being a bad guy because Iran says, okay, uncle, but Trump says no. Like that, if you, that's the general message. As long as you don't pay attention to, Iranian intelligence has sent word that it could be prepared, according to people familiar with the indirect messages.
You got to keep reading the article. It gets even better, as you said.
Better. Yes, it gets better. The messages were conveyed through a third country to the CIA. The people familiar said. I love it. They just say the people familiar said now. Familiar with what? I don't know. They're just familiar.
Wait, the messages were conveyed through a third country to the CIA. Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. A third country. Yeah. Okay.
But so far, it does not appear the channel has resulted in any serious discussions on how to bring the war to an end. I hope they didn't take out the details. One second. Instead, American officials have described entering a new, more intensive phase. Yes, we know this. Iranian leaders, for their part, haven't demonstrated public willingness to negotiate as their ranks grow slimmer. Yet the messages, however preliminary, do suggest an eventual pathway exists to brokering an end to the war. CNN has reached out to the CIA for comment. The New York Times first reported on the messages from Iran. American officials insist they have not been in talks, either directly or through a third party, with the Iranians since nuclear negotiations fell apart. I think they took it out. Shoot. It was so good. They were describing how the messages came. So it was the Iranian intelligence. I don't know what their intelligence is, but Iranian CIA or something reached out to a third country, and it was described as a Western country. So Iran reaches out to the intelligence agency of a different country, who then reaches out to CIA. So the picture you're getting is not of any formal diplomatic channels at all, but the spies of each country make playing telephone with each other to get it to the CIA.
And CNN's
Interesting,
reporting on it.
right? Well, interestingly enough, remember this means CIA has to be the source of this information. So,
Yes.
the people familiar with the indirect messages, that has to be CIA, which means CIA is talking to CNN, and this whole thing is just a bunch of nonsense. But it's but you see it's trying to give this impression of like, oh, they're ready to talk and Trump's just being mean,
Yeah,
trying to
I
see
mean,
if they added any of these details in here. I'm so sad they moved it.
yeah, well, they do
Get
that.
the
They tend to do that.
Eventual pathway. Okay, blah blah blah. Come on.
I didn't see anything really about the Iranian intelligence in there, so
Yeah, let me do one little search here. Let's go. Nope. Yeah, they changed it. Okay. Anywho, so that's fun. That's just a piece of breaking news today. Somebody talked to somebody indirectly to somebody else, and then somebody in the CIA leaked that to CNN. Very cool update.
well, but then CNN reached out to the CIA.
And
that's what it says right here. That CNN
somehow
reached
the
out
New
to
York
CNN.
Times is in there.
The New York Times got there. Yeah, I mean, okay. All right. Well,
okay. One last thing about World War III.
Yes.
Just because there are things going on underneath the surface that they're doing everything in the world to try to distract us from. There's another operation going on, and this was tweeted by U.S. Southern Command, CENTCOM. So this is official something or other. On March 3rd, Ecuadorian and U.S. military forces launched operations against designated terrorist organizations in Ecuador. The operations are a powerful example of the commitment of partners in Latin America and the Caribbean to combat the scourge of narco-terrorism. Together, we are taking decisive action to confront narco-terrorists who have long inflicted terror, violence, and corruption on citizens throughout the hemisphere. Quote, we commend the men and women of the Ecuadorian armed forces for their unwavering commitment to this fight, demonstrating courage and resolve through continued actions against narco-terrorists in their country. So at the same time, we've got the Ecuadorian military, the U.S. military pulling off more narco operations over in Ecuador. Ecuador, remember, right next to Venezuela. So the Monroe Doctrine is not letting up when it comes to just because we have all of our military in Iran turning that place into something unrecognizable. We also have more sort of Venezuela-style operations going on at the same time.
Are we finally getting to the bottom of the war on drugs? Is that what's going on here? They're cutting off the cocaine supply?
About time. Well, while a lot of cocaine does come from Ecuador, also an enormous part of the global oil supply also comes from Ecuador.
Second largest non-OPEC source for oil to the West there.
Yeah.
About a $1.6 billion worth a year. So yeah, that's probably more of what's going on here. I did look up what other stuff Ecuador exports. Shrimp is a big one.
Ooh, good.
Tuna's another one. Bananas. So you
Banana Republic.
Banana Republic, and of course gold and copper. So gotta have
always
got to have a little precious metal in there to rebuild the infrastructure of the world economy.
What if the whole Iranian thing was just a cover so they could take over Ecuador and swoop it into the TECHNATE? The TECHNATE, originally, you look at the TECHNATE map, which we've shown before, which is Greenland's, Canada, America, and Mexico. You forget, does the official TECHNATE map also include Ecuador and Venezuela? Because it seems they're including it. I kind of remember there being a little nubbin down at the bottom.
Maybe like a piece of it, but primarily it's the tip of South America, which include Cuba and and Venezuela. It might reach into Ecuador. I don't know. I have to kind of
Well,
take
if it
a
has
look.
Venezuela, it has to have Ecuador because I think Ecuador
It
is.
touches
Well,
it
maybe I
here.
don't know where Ecuador is. Let me see.
Let me double check here. Oh,
Ecuador
those
map
maps are not fully coming in, but yeah, well,
on
we can.
TECHNATE map.
Yeah, there's a couple different ones here. Okay, here we go. Here's the TECHNATE map. Kind of hard to see
Looks like it
exactly
might
with this one.
include
Yeah.
South America map. This is annoying. You search for Ecuador map and it doesn't know that you actually want a full
You
map.
want the full,
of
the
America.
full map.
Come on.
Let's see. Is Ecuador on the eastern side of South America? I think it's on
No,
the
I
eastern.
don't want to buy a wall map. Just show me a map. What in the world?
There's a psyop trying to keep us.
Gosh. The internet
us apart.
won't show me a map. All right, here we go. The map is loading. It's loading slowly, like I'm on 56K modem.
Yeah, it's on the east side. So yeah, it's kind of it's
top
right
there,
below Colombia on the left there. So you know, technically, I don't think it really has. At least the TECHNATE map I'm looking at doesn't include specifically, but you know, it's close enough. It's close enough. It's
Where's
yeah,
Ecuador?
it's the northern northwestern side.
Oh,
of,
that's included. No, that's totally included.
is it included?
Colombia needs to be in there too, but it's Venezuela. I think it includes Ghana too. Colombia, we'll see what happens. Ecuador, yeah, Ecuador's totally on the TECHNATE map.
I mean, it's close enough. Yeah, it's right there. So it might as well if you're going to be collecting. You know, it's kind of like when you're going shopping or something, and you know, it's like, hey, you don't need it, but it's right there. You might as well. You know,
the CIA is going to be so happy to take over all this narco business. Black budget's about to explode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, oh, here it is. Here's somebody that put together the map. And technically, I don't think
technically leaves Ecuador out.
Technically leaves it out, but once again, it's touching it, so might as well. You know, it's
you know, Trump
strategically
map a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little frosting on top of everything there. So yeah, makes sense.
All right. Well, there's some
Okay.
updates on World War III, but that's just the sort of physical, historical, you know, archetypal side of things. And no war would be complete without some cyber attacks.
Mm-hmm. Man, my jingle board's really slow today. Something needs to change. Maybe I need to reboot this computer or something.
Something needs to change.
Yeah, let's see. Where's my jingle?
The COVID-19 crisis would be seen as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber pandemic.
Money printer go.
Yeah, so part of the fear tactics during conflict is cyber attacks. We know there's kinetic things where we hear about boots on the ground in Iran. That would be a bad idea. That would be a suicide mission for the United States. But in the digital realm, which is an official realm of warfare now that we live in this virtualized economy, according to Reuters.com, U.S. banks on high alert for cyber attacks as Iran war escalates. This was published on March 3rd. It says here, the U.S. financial services industry is on heightened alert for potential cyber attacks amid the unfolding U.S. war in Iran. You know, we didn't bring it, but Basil, all these news outlets are talking about war, and a lot of the some of the leaders of the country of America are saying this is not a war; it's an operation. It's an operation.
Yeah,
it's not a war.
you know,
and I know you're going to take the other side of that debate.
Well, I don't want to. I'm not going to try to take the other side. It's just it's a bit of a boring argument, but you know, it's important to kind of understand because I feel like a lot of people talk past each other. There's a lot of you know, this is a war. He started a war. He said he wasn't going to start a war, and yeah, you know, in a colloquial sense, you could say that, but what really matters is what the lawyers say.
Right. So I can see your point there.
Well, the big one too that people immediately get ramped up about is Congress didn't approve this. He can't do this. Congress didn't approve this. It's like, have you ever heard of the Patriot Act? Like, what are you talking about? Where have you been for 25 years? A president can take military action for 60 days and then he can, take another 30 days to draw down. Congress doesn't need to approve anything. It's just like, I don't know, just political vomit. People saying this is illegal. It's illegal. Well, according to who? It's been legal for 25 years. We've seen it happen. Obama did it. Biden did it. Everybody does it. I don't know. It's just political mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. It says here, cybersecurity has long been a top priority for the financial services industry, which operates critical U.S. infrastructure, including payments, clearing, and settlement systems, as well as trading platforms and treasury markets, making it a top target for cyber attacks, according to industry data. And I'm going to jump over here to a Newsweek article that also got published yesterday. Thousands impacted as Federal Reserve faces transaction delays, issues. And it says the Federal Reserve was hit with transaction issues on Tuesday, but the problems were resolved by the afternoon. They was resolved.
Yeah, because if there's a problem with Federal Reserve numbers, all they have to do is press delete. Okay, how much money do we want to exist? Okay, here's all the money we want to exist. Like, there's nobody checking their work.
I know. And the obvious sort of connection here to the whole crypto thing.
Is this a crypto?
Of course, the ACH and the financial rails are built on code from the 70s, Cobalt. It's COBOL. It's a very old programming language. A lot of our financial rails are just old and slow, and it's probably the last industry to really get the facelift to the modern era here. So, of course, we get ACH problems. Iran cyber attacking the American banks. What do we do? Crypto, come save us. According to Reuters, published on tradingview.com here, Kraken's banking arm becomes first crypto firm to secure payments account with Fed.
Wow.
The crypto trading platform that's named after a giant sea monster octopus, Kraken, is the first cryptocurrency exchange to gain access to the Federal Reserve's payment system through a limited purpose account. It's the first U.S. digital asset bank to do so as the sector deepens its reach into mainstream finance. Through its Fed master account, Kraken Financial can link directly to core U.S. payment systems such as FedWire, avoiding intermediary banks and enabling faster, more efficient fiat transfers for international clients while reducing operational complexity and costs, the company said in a blog post Wednesday. So, yeah, there you go. I mean, this is
non-corporate. I mean, it's a pretty big deal. It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
No,
but
this is the first. It's the first expression of the legacy financial system integrating with the whole, decentralized sort of crypto nonsense. This is really a Fed kind of taking over. This is their best case scenario.
Right.
Worst case scenario is they don't let crypto banks into the system and people leave the Fed system for the crypto system.
I
So,
mean,
kind of a bad news philosophically, but not one we didn't see coming.
Yeah, and I do wonder because there's a lot of people who are fans of a cryptocurrency called XRP, made by Ripple, and they point out often that XRP was made for cross-border payments and secure payments and whatnot, and they're ready to go. Like, they've been ready to go since 2013. I think they've been around since 2013 or 2014 to become the new rails of the international financial system. And so it's almost like doing something like this is either a soft entry into that world. And of course, there are more than just one cryptocurrency blockchains. So there's a possibility there, or they're just trying to avoid XRP from really taking over and monopolizing this entire international decentralized system. But to your point about the TECHNATE, this is another indicator here. And we've always talked about how the economics of it all will really be the final boss, so to speak, when it comes to the flip over. You can get all kinds of surveillance apparatuses, and certainly we have all the infrastructure for that. We've heard all the things about how Wi-Fi can track body movements in the house, and the surveillance system with AI. But once the economic rails shifts over to something that is like crypto, then you know that the entire system is ready for that facelift, for the big technocratic move. And to that effect, today, Basil, breaking, CNBC, big tech companies to meet Trump at White House to sign pledge on data center power costs. Well, this is interesting. The major technology companies will meet President Trump at the White House next week to sign a pledge that they will supply their own power for artificial intelligence data centers. So this is Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, XAI. For some reason, they don't get a hyperlink in this article. Oracle and OpenAI, who just became the contractors with Palantir and the military-industrial complex, replacing Claude and Anthropic, will sign the agreement at the March 4th meeting. A White House official confirmed to CNBC Wednesday, quote, "Under this bold initiative, these massive companies will build, bring, or buy their own power supply for new AI data centers, ensuring that Americans' electricity bills will not increase as demand grows."
Well, this is part of what we've kind of tertiarily been paying attention to. I know Sir Ike has done a lot of research on this as well. But this is one of the big problems. This is one of the ways that local communities have actually been able to halt the construction of data centers. Water is one big part of it, but power is another, because you get a big data center on your grid, suddenly your electricity bill like triples overnight. So this was a very popular thing Trump floated a couple weeks ago. But the very interesting thing about this is a lot of what we're going to see is the deployment of mini reactors, either mini nuclear little
small modular reactors, SMRs, I believe.
Right. So it's this little shipping container. A helicopter plops down on the property, and it's a little nuclear reactor. Makes all the electricity that the thing can need. Which, especially when it comes to cyber risks, we really don't want Iran coming in and hacking your data center, turning off the power. They have on-site nuclear reactors. It's going to be hard to turn that off.
Yeah, and a lot of resources.
Control. We talked about this before. They're talking about giving the AI that the data center is harboring control of its own nuclear reactor, so it can keep itself alive long after humans have been annihilated.
Well, yes, and Sir Ike has he's always been sharing his research with us with some of the materials necessary for SMRs, and a lot of the mining and some of the policy going on in certain states and around the world, Greenland maybe being one of them, and Venezuela even being one of them, antimony being part of that conversation. Seems to be strategically for this move here, this energy production, being in the hands of the corporations, especially the ones that are facilitating AI. And this is, it seems like it's moving towards the god of fortresses in a way that we've talked about from the scriptures there. Go ahead.
It's interesting, the idea of a corporation or a data center being in control of its own energy. It really brings up this network state versus nation state, because we're seeing two things happen at the same time right now. We're seeing Venezuela, Ecuador, we're seeing Iran, and to a degree, obviously, a huge part of it, and they're not trying to hide this, is about energy, the movement of energy. Trump deploying the U.S. Navy to ensure and guarantee the transportation of energy, of oil and gas. I mean, really, it's not. We all know this, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. But energy is everything. The entire world if the energy isn't moving, if it's not being dug up in one place and brought to another, the amount of energy available to a country decides whether they are dead or alive, more or less. And for a long, long time, of course, the securing of energy, the movement of energy is basically the force that controls all the actions of man for a very, very long time. And in the nation state concept, you want your nation state to have all the energy, or you want to go to the nation state that has all the energy. It's why people want to come to America. And as we're moving, we have now cataloged several ways this episode that we are stepping directly into this new organization of humanity, where we've talked about no longer nation state being the most important citizenship, but the network state.
Right.
And, the network state, one example of this being, hey, if your network state, if your corporation, if your whatever has its own nuclear reactor, people are going to want to be in your network state, because you don't want your network state relying on an old-fashioned, crummy, energy system. No, this is like geopolitics playing out on the sort of corporate network state level.
Right. And I feel that the El Salvador story over the last, 4 or 5 years has been a microcosm, sort of a blueprint to how this is going to operate, because they, Bukele came in, wiped out the gang sort of control of the nation, the corruption, the drugs, and all that kind of stuff. Very similar to what Trump's doing with Venezuela and now Ecuador, maybe. So that's the first step. And then create a sort of a competitive infrastructure first logic for energy and technology. And for example, with El Salvador, they really went all the way. They kind of did like the full blown version of it, because they went, hey, we're making Bitcoin legal tender in this country. We're giving Bitcoin to everybody in the country. Just download this app. You can start with your little bit of Bitcoin there and start pumping the economy with it. And, he's done a fairly decent job at doing that. And so, the AI rails is sort of the layer on top, of the economic rails that Bitcoin or, decentralization and blockchains provide. But what I find interesting, what I am curious to see how things play out, is how the cyberspace will become more and more inextricably tied to energy production, specifically directly. Because right now, this is Jason P. Lowry's thesis, right? Jason P. Lowry, I've talked about him. He wrote the book Soft War, which was published and then taken off the shelves because it probably gave away too much of the blueprint of what they were trying to do with crypto and Bitcoin. And the idea was, with Bitcoin, there's something called the proof of work system. That's how Bitcoin operates. And people complain, oh, Bitcoin, it just, you need so much energy to maintain the Bitcoin network. And people complained about it, but it's like, no, that's the point. That's the whole point. You can't just willy-nilly use software as this medium where the people don't have the kind of leverage that the I guess the gods of the cyber gods do, where because energy, there's no direct physical cost of energy, or it's very small. The ratio is really off when it comes to something happening at the software level and then something happening, the consequences directly tied to physical energy being burned. Well, if those things, if the gap there closes, then anything that's done in the digital realm will start to have actual physical impact, because it's burning more energy in the physical world. And so, you can see how the two-way street is being built there. And I'm just interested to see how that works, because that will make every prompt will cost. I mean, it already costs a certain amount now, but I'm talking more. It's going to become, it'll create efficiencies around what you do in the digital landscape. And that it'll prevent corruption, because you can't just spam things anymore. Or if you want to, it's going to cost a lot more, stuff like that. So it's an interesting thesis. I'm just curious to see if they can actually pull off something like that and It'll probably take a while until it reaches some kind of
No,
actual
think
efficiency
it's
and
I
implication
think it's
or
already
implementation.
happening. I think it's really allegorical to the metaphor or the comparison or whatever. I don't know exactly what to call it, to the spiritual realm, like the
Right.
cyberspace as the man created counterfeit of the spiritual realm, which again is all wrapped up in technocracy, transhumanism, the Tower of Babel. This cyberspace is this man-made, if not allegory, it's a total counterfeit of what the spiritual realm's relation is to the physical realm. And what you're describing is kind of a next step of, at least allegorically, to cyberspace, to the physical world. And it's unfortunate because people have a lot of trouble understanding exactly how, the spirit and the physical interact with one another. But they are sort of inextricably tied. And if the adversary is going to counterfeit God's creation, he's gonna have to do exactly what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on this, and this is sort of why the topic of Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain and all those things were of interest to me. It's not just the monetary side of it; it's truly the infrastructure, and now, as clear as day, the energy infrastructure side of it, and how it might relate to small modular reactors. And all the so we'll see how it all plays out. It's all going to be blockchain.
Blockchain.
Running out of time a little bit, Basil. So let's fly through some of this.
Yeah, let's fly through. Let's do some of this. This is very interesting. I threw a link in there.
I see this.
I think
Yeah,
Lindsey Graham has a great intro to this next section here.
Okay, so we're talking about the spirit. It's a good thing you mentioned the spiritual battle here, because that's also a big part of the fifth gen warfare, the narrative wars going on with justification for war and violence and all these different things. So it's going biblical.
It's got to be biblical.
Here's Lindsey Graham allegedly talking about how this war is religious.
This is a religious war. Who wins it at the end of the day? Do the radical Islamic terrorists who want to kill all the Jews because God told them to? Who want to kill me because I'm an infidel? Who want to purify Islam, to reject moderation and make everybody a jihadist? This is a big deal. I'll deal with Section 230. So what we're facing right now is a moment of decision that will set the course of the future of the Mideast for 1,000 years.
Wow, 1,000 years, huh?
Years.
Like the millennial reign.
Millennial reign, the Third Reich, the lots of 1,000-year.
The golden age. I mean, that is what the golden age sort of was. And I mean, we contextualize it as Trump's golden age now.
Now, people may have seen. Now, it's funny because if we think back, we can connect a little bit of dots. Over the past few years, we documented how even the war in Ukraine was framed as a holy war by Putin. This has become just sort of a normal part of the fifth gen warfare with any sort of operation, any sort of conflict. They find a way, and not just a way, not just narratively, but some sort of casus belli, some purpose for religious war. In Putin's example,
yeah.
The
artifact that sank in the ship, it was like Jesus's cross, some piece of wood from Jesus's cross or something, right? It was
very exciting.
Part of the boat, and
for some reason, one of their battleships was equipped with a piece of Jesus's cross. They sunk the battleship, and now it's a religious war.
It's a whole,
So we see this happen all the time. It's kind of, it's a little bit played to say, whatever. You keep saying like use religion as a justification for war. I mean, that's, justification is not even the right word. Like, it's not even just to justify things necessarily. It's like crafting reality. In this case, it's not even, well, it justifies war because they hate us and it's real, and they have a religion. It's no. We're crafting the reality around you that this is a religious war, not just that religion justifies our actions. Our scripture justifies killing you. That's one thing. But to actually frame the reality of this is a religious war, it kind of steps it up in a very fun way. And many people, if you've gone online at all, you will have seen lots of talk about how U.S. officers were telling their troops all around the world that this is a battle for Armageddon. Now, we jumped in. We're taking this from Snopes, okay? Snopes actually is really useful in this case, and I don't think it's in the way that they want to be useful. But for those, if you see it on, there's been articles written about it, as everybody's tweeting about it, there are officers in the United States military who are gathering up all their troops and telling them that Jesus sent Trump to start this war of Armageddon, and this is going to bring, be Jesus's second coming. And all these soldiers are like, oh, whoa, you guys are kind of intense. And there's post after post and article after article. However, nobody does what Snopes does here and admit something about this. Here it is. Investigating claim U.S. troops were told Iran war is for Armageddon, return of Jesus. Let's see. In March 2026, after the U.S. and Israel launched strikes in Iran that killed the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, a claim circulated online that the U.S. military commanders told troops that attacks are part of a Christian war to bring about Armageddon and the return of Jesus. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? One Facebook post that shared the claim featured a quote from a Substack that read, quote, "A combat unit commander told non-commissioned officers at a briefing Monday that the Iran war is part of God's plan and that President Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth," according to a complaint by a non-commissioned officer. Claims also circulated on X, Instagram, Thread.
It got everywhere. It was kind of crazy to see this blow up after our little rant on Monday, or at least my rant. We played Greg Laurie and who was it, Hagee, and all these guys talking about the holy sort of Israel war. Yeah, the whole thing.
The claim came from reporting by the independent journalist Jonathan Larson, who also writes the commentary Substack, The Effing News. When I first read that, I did not see the N in news. I thought it was a different letter, and I was Larson based his report on information from the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, a nonprofit organization that works to protect religious freedom in the U.S. Armed Forces. According to Larson's report, an anonymous, service member had complained to MRFF that one commander reportedly told troops, quote, "President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire, blah, blah, blah." Larson reported that MRFF kept complaints anonymous to protect complainants from backlash. Armageddon is the name of a biblical place where, according to the Bible, the kings of the earth, led by demons, would wage war on the forces of God. According to the book of Revelation, Jesus would return during this fight, and also known as the second coming. I was actually pretty impressed with Snopes to actually point out the biblical reference that Armageddon is the name of the place where this war.
The Valley of Megiddo, yes.
Yeah, you usually don't see that. I mean, from any news source, much less Snopes, some actual, caring about what they're actually talking about. Now, Snopes does not rely on anonymous sources in our reporting. Larson and Mikey Weinstein, the MRFF founder, both said they had not received any video or audio recordings of the reported Christian messaging by commanders. Therefore, we leave this claim unrated.
Wow.
Unrated.
So unsatisfactory.
They don't even want to touch this. They're like, hey, some guy said it. He said, some anonymous guy, some nonprofit said it. I don't know, but it's the Military Religious Freedom Foundation is an interesting foundation because it sounds like, and when you look at the website and stuff, it looks like it would be kind of like a pro-Christian, religious freedom. Hey, it's
Mhm.
pro-Christian. Yeah, it's got American flags everywhere. It's kind of looks like a Christian website put together. I don't know how to, but it's actually specifically not Christian. It's kind of, I won't necessarily call them anti-Christian, but they do a lot of work.
Are they
to
like
try.
very constitutionalist, like the division of church and state kind of thing, like really pressing into that
Yeah, I mean,
philosophy?
most of their, at least from what I can tell, most of their stuff is specifically anti-Christian and pro other religions. Like their point is like,
Mm.
you can't make the military Christian because they're other things. Like they write about Pentagon Christian nationalism and
Oh.
stuff like that.
Okay.
So
So Satanists. All right, good.
I don't know. The vibe that they give off, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because again, their website is branded like it would be like "Let our soldiers pray" type of thing.
Right.
But it's kind of anti, I guess, default Christian maybe.
Mm.
So anyways, if Snopes is unwilling to confirm your thing, that's something. That's saying something.
Okay, all right, fine. I did let's see. I did repost this somewhere. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. I mean, I farmed this a little bit on my X account there, so you can just say that it was a farm. But okay.
We
Go ahead.
contacted real quick. We contacted the
Mm.
Department of Defense for its comment on the Larson's reporting and information from MRFF and await a reply. Weinstein told Snopes that by the morning of March 3rd, the MRFF had received around 200 complaints about commanders invoking Christian messaging to describe U.S. action in Iran. Weinstein previously told Larson the organization received more than 110 complaints between February 28th and March 2nd. Those complaints came from, quote, more than 40 different units spread across at least 30 military installations across, quote, every branch of the military. So the impression that they're trying to give, whether, I mean, I don't know what to say. If Snopes doesn't have any evidence to go off of, it's just the word of this guy. It sounds like they're making it sound like, word came from the top to tell
Sure.
every soldier to get ready for the Battle of Armageddon. It's just kind of kooky,
It is a little kooky. Yeah. Well, I will say that good job, Snopes, for trying to hunt down the real source there. But it doesn't really matter because I think culturally it's being pushed in that direction. This is back to dailymail.co.uk. They published an article late last night, or I guess it was in the afternoon. 4 biblical signs the world has entered the end of days as U.S. bombs Iran.
They are really laying it on thick. Huh?
Laying it on thick, man. You know what? I'm not going to even read it because it's pointless. I will read you my response that I published on my X account because I did a little analysis of the 4 things that the Daily Mail. Don't get your theology or eschatology from Daily Mail, everybody. It's really a poor job there. I said the 4 biblical examples in this article do not explicitly indicate we have entered the end of days, but the media are really leaning into the narrative at this time for obvious reasons. First, Matthew 24, 6-7, wars and rumors of wars have been a thing since Jesus said it in the 1st century, but proper context of the passage says, but the end is not yet.
Yeah.
And I put hey, like if this is the end, but then the passage you quote says this is not the end. I mean, I don't know, you be the judge. Next, Ezekiel 38:5 does mention a coalition of nations that come up against the people of God. But again, proper context of the chapter shows that this is apocalyptic theology about the final defeat of supernatural and earthly enemies after Israel is restored, because it talks about them living securely without walls, which is not, as I say explicitly, not about the contemporary geopolitics, but some brethren cannot help themselves. Third, 1 Thessalonians 5:3 says there will be sudden destruction after peace and safety, which is not the current situation in the contemporary Middle East.
Right.
Can you describe modern Israel or Iran as peace and safety? I don't know. Finally, the day of the Lord, mentioned multiple times in Scripture, is about God's decisive confrontation with rebellion, human and supernatural, followed by the restoration of his rule over the earth. It doesn't have to have any relevance to contemporary geopolitics. Bad hermeneutics leads to misleading contemporary support for geopolitical violence, and I simply won't stand for it. It's weaponizing Scripture, and it's wrong. I don't care if 1 million people disagree with me on this. I'm heavily convicted that using Scripture like this is irresponsible. And then, of course, I think this is part of the key to making it on X now. You post clips from movies and recontextualize them for your point. And I posted the clip from Dune, where main character there, walks through a crowd.
The second
all
coming
looking at
of
him.
Christopher Chalamet, Timothy Chalamet.
Right. So anyway, that's my take on there. Hey, this post is doing pretty good too. Look at that, 157,000 views there.
It's strange, and this is the thing, okay? Coming from people who've been in the world of identifying the end of days for a long, long time, going on 15 years now.
Yeah.
It is really, really, really suspicious that the mainstream media, the military, Lindsey Graham, Pete Hegseth, really strange that suddenly everybody wants us to think that it's the Battle of Armageddon and that Jesus is coming back soon. It's like, does anybody even read their Bibles?
No, they don't. They don't. I mean, they're really preying on the people that are biblically illiterate there. And if you are a Christian and you're buying all of this, here's the thing. I don't think a lot of people are buying it. I think it's a very small minority that are like, yeah, Pete Hegseth and Lindsey Graham finally speaking truth about the current situation in the Middle East. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but
well,
yeah.
One interesting thing, just real quick before we land the plane here, I want to thank producer Meredith, who sent me some news, and it's been a while since we've checked in, but let's check in with Chris Shilzilla.
Shill for sure.
Chris Shilzilla, fella that we have been talking about, following for a very long time, since his time with CNN. Not gonna lie, we've pretty much called every step of his journey from top to bottom. I don't know why he's not reaching out, because apparently we are able to predict his future. I don't need to give his whole thing, but longtime listeners, you'll understand our relationship with Chris Shilzilla. He posted, it kind of went under the radar, but on February 24th, he posted a tweet, says, "I've been writing about my spiritual journey as I try to find my way to faith. Today, I shared my plan to dedicate the first 15 minutes of every day to reading the Bible, journaling, and maybe praying. The full post is in the next tweet. If you had advice, I'd love to hear it." And I go to his Substack, and apparently he wrote this, last month. And it looks like Chris is searching for Jesus. Let me give you just a little taste here. I wanted to write this post on January 1st, then I planned to write it and post it February 1st, and I thought maybe I'd do it February 20th. And then
okay, all right, Chris, get to the point.
Of those deadlines. We made, this is even when he was on CNN, this is how he wrote all of his stuff.
Yeah, everything's very frantic. Yeah,
can't take the CNN out of the kid. Long story short, he who is it? His father-in-law passed away in 2023, and since then, he has been wrestling with his faith. He feels quite drawn back to Jesus. And apparently he's been having semi-regular kind of discipleship meetings with a pastor in his town. and he attends church sometimes.
He says it's a, well, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if there's a specific part you wanted to, the details, we could get into details, but he says, David and I met most recently last fall. David is the pastor he's meeting with. And he explained to him that what I was struggling with most was finding ways to just think about my faith, as in my days are very full, from making content and building a small business and driving kids to sports and other after school activities, to trying to be a good husband and father. Faith and religion more broadly have simply not been a regular part of my daily life for a very long time. I just don't make time for it. The result is that as I turn my light off most nights, I find myself regretting that it is the first time I have thought about faith and religion all day. It's, as a CNN guy, because, he could also say, it's the first time I've thought about God all day. Notice how it is in the context of
faith,
religion as ideas, abstract ideas, and not God. But you'll get there. I presented my problem to David, and he told me that what he does is build 15 to 20 minutes into his morning every morning where he reads his Bible and journals. The point he made to me, which is both simple and profound, is this: you prioritize your priorities. If you find yourself not making time to read the Bible or write and reflect in your life through the lens of faith, it is simply not a priority. Long story short, he says, I'm making it my priority to read the Bible and pray and maybe journal every single day, starting out every morning. And folks, if this is not the most relatable guy when it comes to wondering how to build your faith and then executing on a way to build your faith, this is Chris Cillizza. If he can do it, you can do it, brothers and sisters. This is something we talk a lot about on Canary Cry Clubhouse. So if you haven't tuned into a Clubhouse recently, I highly recommend you do. If you find yourself, like Chris, often going through your entire day without prioritizing, your faith or your relationship with Christ, tune in with Clubhouse. We do a lot of talking about this. And of course, the read your Bible every morning thing is of an obvious and simple piece of advice that everybody will give you. But reading about Chris Cillizza's, journey with such a basic, simple principle when it comes to living the life of a Christian, I mean, it's really one of those moments you're just like, wow, they're just like us. These reporters are just like us, aren't they? I want to read this one thing here. Saying privately that I'm going to make 15 minutes every morning for the Bible reading, prayer, and reflection is one thing. Telling 33,000 of my closest friends that I am pledging to make this commitment is something else, and I hope it makes it more likely I actually do it. Dropping
33 is the number of completion of the Great War.
Always gotta do that. Gotta do
33 in there.
Yeah.
So anyways, just, he's trying his best. He's trying to come back to Christ. He's taking these very simple steps that we've all had to commit to before. And if we haven't, we want to. I thought it was an uplifting piece of news for someone that we have followed so closely for so very long.
I think it's time to invite him onto the show and have a little conversation.
I think so. It's time to.
We can help him answer these questions here.
Everyone should be praying for Chris Cillizza, as we always have. By the way, personal best friend of the show, Chris Cillizza. There's one last thing I was going to mention, but it's not coming to my brain, so I'm not so sure. But yeah, so the Lord's opening doors to connect with someone we have felt for a very long time should come spend some time on the show. He has this secret interest in very similar things that we're interested in, yet he has to hide behind this sort of CNN journalist facade. And he was one of the first. He's a leading indicator. And remember this, I get it. I'm sorry if really mostly old school Canarians will remember this era, but he's this leading indicator. And that's why we've watched him so closely, is he starts playing with a fringy idea, and then suddenly it hits the mainstream. He starts playing with the idea of going independent journalists, like leaving CNN. You don't need the legacy media. Legacy media is dead. Now, he got fired and tried to find other jobs and inevitably went independent because he had to, which is what we were telling him that he had to do the whole time. And now I read the whole thing. I think this is a very earnest thing that he's trying to get closer to God. He's trying to work on his faith. And I consider that a leading indicator to a lot of the like liberal journalist mainstream. I think we're going to start seeing other characters like Chris, mainstream, ex-mainstream, liberal.
Who's next? Don Lemon? Are you gonna throw a little poly market on Don Lemon turning to faith, like actual faith, not Lemon, kind of?
He was the next. I don't know if he was the next, but he was an eventual example of the CNN mainstream journalist going independent. Now, again, they all get fired. None of them take the leap on their own. So, but hey, keep an eye out. Is Don Lemon the next guy to turn to Christ? I don't know, but I think it's a positive indicator here.
Let's invite some dudes over in fellowship tonight.
That's right.
Invitation to Chris.
And
all right,
let's go ahead. We have a couple of producers to thank, and we can get out of here. We are on the value for value model, folks, which means we don't get any money from corporations, cartels. We don't get a paycheck. There's nobody, whatever. We're not selling your consciousness, and I hope you care about that because we care about it. I don't know. Maybe you don't. But these people, they came back. They said, we get value from the show. We continue to get value from the show. We understand. We take responsibility that we have to put value back in with our time, our talent, or our treasure. However God has equipped you to help out the show, keep us going, please do that. Of course, if you're an artist or a musician, you can go to CanaryCry.Art, create something for the show, go to CanaryCry.Art, upload it there. We'd love to feature it. Or you can support us financially by going to CanaryCry.Support. It's very important. To go through the list, we have producer Jason B coming in for a nice round number. And just
Jason,
a reminder for any potential producers out there, when you produce the show financially, if you come in with a nice flat round number on the 5 or the 10, that's you telling us you prefer we don't disclose the amount. If you don't mind us disclosing the amount, or you want us to, then you make it a funky number. Put 33 cents on there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 11, 77, stuff like that. And that tells us you don't mind us disclosing it. Like producer Rebecca T, who comes in for 4321.
4321. Rebecca T, thank you.
Rebecca T, I hadn't noticed it, but it snuck up on us. Rebecca T is on a 3-episode streak.
Hey, she's heating up.
Thank you very much, Rebecca T, heating up. It's been a while since we've had a new person start heating up. God bless you. We've got producer Julius is back with a nice round. Julius says, please keep England in your prayers. I don't recognize it anymore on any level.
Yeah,
it's really sad watching what's going on, but I am I'm uplifted, I guess, by how so many people are talking about what's going on in England. I'm hearing a lot more out of England. I'm hearing a lot more people in England actually talking about it. It's reached a real crazy dystopian pitch, and Lord willing, hopefully that'll be enough to wake people up. Praying for you, Julius. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julius.
Next up, Jonathan F came in and supports the show financially for $32.33.
Ooh, sneaky.
Yeah, very fun. Thank you, Jonathan F.
Thank you, Jonathan F.
And of course, we had Cage Rattler Coffee support the show. So just a mention there, not going to give the whole thing, but just a reminder, go to CageRattlerCoffee.com, get your coffee. And a portion of every one of those comes to support the show, produce the show, and your soul with Cage Rattler Coffee.
Awesome.
And real quick, because it's Wednesday, I'm going to run through our streakers. These are people, well, if you come in under $7, if you come in over $7.77, you're entitled to have a note read on the show. If you come in under 777, we thank you on Wednesdays, mostly because the under 777 people are on long streaks.
Yeah.
You know, I forgot to mention Mrs. Tinfoil Hatman, who's our executive producer for the day, is on a 193 episode streak.
Oh my goodness. I don't even have a
thank
button
you.
for it.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
But we do have
Thank you.
Veronica D, who comes in for a 557 episode streak. Thank you.
Wow. Thank
Sir
you.
Scott, Knight of Truth, is on a 602 episode streak.
Thank you, Sir Scott.
Sir Casey the Shield Knight is on a 607 episode streak.
Sir Casey, the Shield Knight.
Thank you, Sir Casey.
That's right. That concludes our list of financial producers. Thank you very, very much. God bless all of our financial. It's a tough life living value for value, especially in times like these. But we're so blessed that God blesses our producers, and that our producers are, obedient to the unctions of the Holy Spirit within them, because without that, we would be gone long, long ago. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. You have anything to mention before we thank our timestampers?
No. So let's thank the timestampers.
It's hard work.
Jade Bouncerson did the last episode 919, Blood Moon Portals. Thank you very much
Thank
to
you,
Jade
Jade
Bouncerson.
Bouncerson. And thanks some other producers who give the sweat of their brow to help the community. Jam heads up the Telegram channel. Adam42 heads up the Discord channel. These are both really important community areas. If you want to connect with other Canarians, highly recommend you do. If you go to CanaryCry.Party, you'll see invite links down on the list there for the Telegram and the Discord channel. You can join up easy there. Thank you to Joe for all your feedback. Thank you to Clank for everything you do for us. Thank you to Sir Ike, of course, for the innumerable ways that he sustains us with the sweat of his brow. And other than that, folks, share the show. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Let them know the time is now. Armageddon's coming. Oh my gosh, Jesus is coming back. You got to listen to Canary Cry News Talk. Go ahead and do it. We call it rattling cages. And all you got to do is walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
And one last thing here. It looks like the ground invasion of Iran has started. Boots on the
already
ground. And in classic American fashion, it's thousands of Iraqi Kurds who are launching the ground
offensive
to Iran. And that means one thing. CIA has been earning their gruel, okay? No American boots on the ground. Drop some pallets of cash to the Kurds, give them some guns, and send them in there to get the job done. Thank you.
I thought the report was explicitly that the CIA was arming the Kurds there.
Oh, they are. Oh, I don't know if it was in the report, but
I think that was
CIA
that's the report I saw.
The CIA has been. Well, did you see a tweet or was it a report? Because people tweet
whatever I
it's
see
very
is
well.
fact.
Yeah, right. It's very well known that our CIA has been funding the Kurds for a very long time, at least 30 years. So there you go. They're earning their keep. Thank you, Kurds, or whatever. All right, Gonz, you got any last words?
It was official. It was CNN with the headline.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is well known that the Kurds are armed by the CIA. This is not.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, it wasn't just a tweet. It was actually CNN reporting it. So with the headline, CIA working to arm Kurdish forces to spark uprising in Iran. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, there you go. CNN confirms it. It's no longer a conspiracy theory. We've been arming the Kurds.
Okay.
Is that it? Is
We're
that
done.
your last?
That's it.
Thing?
Yes, I'm done. The music has already stopped.
Well, what are you going to do? All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Bye, 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 bye.
I'm out of here. Bye.